I love you so much.
I love you too.
For Tanya Harris, life had always been about family. When she married Calvin in the spring of 2004, she imagined a home filled with children's laughter, Sunday dinners, and the kind of love stories her grandmother used to tell. But as the years passed, the laughter never came. Month after month, year after year, no children, just unanswered prayers. By the 5th year of marriage, the ache in her heart grew heavier. She watched friends cradle newborns, saw strollers at the park, and smiled politely at baby showers, all while wondering why her arms remained empty. Calvin tried to ease the pain with reassurance, telling her that love between the two of them was enough. But Tanya's soul longed for more. She wanted to be a mother. She wanted to feel tiny hands grip her fingers, to hear a voice call her mommy. And then, one day, that dream came true. In the summer of 2009, Tanya held her firstborn, Jamal, in her arms. 2 years later, little Ayana arrived, with bright eyes and a laugh that melted every shadow in their home. To outsiders, the Harris family seemed complete. Tanya's joy was radiant, and Calvin embraced fatherhood with pride that could fill a room. Neighbors saw a family they admired. Friends saw a love story they envied. And Tanya, for a time, allowed herself to believe her life was exactly what she had prayed for. But while Tanya rocked her babies to sleep and kissed scraped knees in the kitchen, something inside her remained unsettled. Because in the shadows of that joy, there was another truth she could not let see daylight. A truth that would follow her into every room, every moment, until the walls of her home could no longer contain it. For more than a decade, she carried a truth that even Calvin did not know. A truth that, if spoken, could shatter the very foundation of their marriage. On that morning in 2016, as Tanya poured milk in her children's cereal bowls, she thought she was protecting her family by holding it all inside. What she didn't know was that the very secret she thought kept them safe would one day tear them apart. This is the story of love, betrayal, and the devastating cost of silence. On the tree-lined streets of South Los Angeles, the Harris family seemed to embody everything neighbors admired. Calvin Harris was 39, a construction foreman who carried himself with quiet pride. Men at the job site looked to him for guidance. And in church, his handshake lingered, firm, reassuring, the kind of grip that made others believe he was steady as stone. His wife, Tanya, at 35, was known for her grace. She sang softly in the choir, the kind of voice that didn't soar above others but blended in, smoothing the edges of every hymn. Mothers at the church potluck whispered about her poise, her pressed dresses, the way she always remembered birthdays. To the outside world, she was the glue of the family. Together, they raised 2 children who lit up the block. Jamal, 12, tall for his age, dribbled a basketball on cracked concrete until dusk, calling, "Dad, you gotta see this one." Ayana, 10, taped her sketches to the refrigerator, portraits of family, sunflowers, and houses with big windows. Neighbors said you could hear her laughter echo down the block before you even saw her. But if the street saw perfection, Tanya knew another truth. Behind her smile, there were nights she lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan, counting each slow turn like a measure of time she couldn't escape. At barbecues, while Calvin flipped ribs and neighbors raised plastic cups, Tanya's laughter sounded full, but it never quite reached her eyes. She had been carrying something for 12 long years. Something buried so deeply that even her children's laughter couldn't silence it, and her husband's strong hands could never lift it away. The Harris home was full of light, family portraits, polished wood, the smell of Sunday dinners that clung to the walls. But inside Tanya, there lived a shadow no one else could see. And, as months became years, the weight of that secret began to bleed into the way she moved, the way she avoided the mirror too long, the way she lingered at the church pew when service ended, folding hymn sheets slower than everyone else. The family everyone admired was held together by Tanya's silence. But silence is not the same as peace. So the question remains, How long can love survive when it's built on a truth only one person knows? By 2009, Calvin and Tanya's marriage had carried the weight of silence for years. Month after month, disappointment had settled over their home like a second tenant. They had seen doctors, endured the endless testing, and heard the same conclusion again and again. You're both healthy. Just keep trying. It was meant to be reassurance. But to a couple longing for a child, it became a sentence. Just keep trying. Keep waiting. Keep hurting. Then, one afternoon, the waiting ended. Tanya stood in their bathroom, her hand trembling as she held a small white stick. The line appeared slowly, faint at first, then undeniable. Positive. She sank to the floor, tears streaming down her face. After years of silence, here it was, the answer. When she told Calvin, he didn't question. He didn't hesitate. His smile broke through years of frustration like sunlight through storm clouds. He pulled Tanya into his arms, whispering, "We did it, finally." For him, there was no room for suspicion, no hidden questions. After years of prayers, this was nothing short of a miracle. The months that followed were filled with joy. Calvin painted the nursery in soft blues and yellows. He stayed up late assembling a crib, laughing each time he got a screw wrong. Tanya watched him from the doorway, her hand resting on her growing belly, her face lit by a mixture of relief and dread. She smiled when he smiled, kissed him when he kissed her, but inside, she knew her joy was different from his. His was pure. Hers was complicated. At family gatherings, Calvin beamed with pride, announcing the news with the confidence of a man whose dreams were finally becoming real. He spoke of baby names, college funds, and the kind of father he wanted to be. He believed completely. He trusted completely. To him, this child was proof that love had conquered time and struggle. But Tanya's silence grew louder with each passing day. She laughed at the right moments, posed for pictures with her glowing belly, but at night, when the house was quiet, she stared at the ceiling and wondered how long she could carry both the child and the truth. Calvin's joy was absolute, his trust unshaken. But Tanya knew what he didn't. She knew what lay hidden beneath their miracle. And one day, that secret would demand a price far greater than either of them could imagine. The year is 2021. 12 years have passed since Tanya's secret first took root. And on a quiet evening in California, their house seems almost too ordinary. The kids are upstairs finishing homework. The hum of the dishwasher drones from the kitchen, and Tanya folds laundry on the couch. She has no warning that tonight will be the night. Everything she has buried begins to shift. Calvin steps through the door, shoulders slumped in a way she has not seen before. His tie is loose, his eyes heavy, as though he's walked through a storm no one else could see. He doesn't greet her with his usual half-smile. Instead, he lingers in the doorway, silent, staring at the floor. Tanya looks up, uneasy. Something in her chest tightens. She fears he has found out the truth, and of course he had some truth to reveal. Without sitting, without touching the food she has warmed for him, Calvin begins to speak. His voice is low, hoarse, almost breaking. He tells her about the affair, the woman, the reckless nights that began when he convinced himself his marriage was slipping away. He admits the shame he has carried for months, the way he kept praying it would disappear if he ignored it long enough. But then comes the part that makes his body tremble. The woman is pregnant, and she is threatening to tell everything if he doesn't leave Tanya. The words hang in the air like smoke, filling every corner of the room. Tanya's eyes well with tears. Calvin thinks it is from heartbreak, that he has shattered the trust of the only woman who ever stood by him. He mistakes her silence for pain at his betrayal. But Tanya's tears are not from his sin. They come from a place far darker. Because in that instant, Calvin's confession slices open the very foundation of their marriage. Tanya knows the mistress is lying. She knows the timeline makes no sense. She knows because the truth Calvin doesn't is that the child he raised for 12 years is not his either. Inside, Tanya's heart races so fast she feels she might faint. Her mind screams to confess, to shout the truth so that this cruel irony doesn't crush her. But she can't. She sees her entire life flash before her. The wedding vows, the baby showers, the family vacations, all built on one carefully guarded lie. If she admits now that their children is not Calvin's, then every memory, every sacrifice, every dream they built together will collapse like a house of cards. So she cries, but not for him. She cries for herself. For the years she thought she had buried the truth deep enough. For the fear that the walls she built are crumbling faster than she can hold them up. Calvin drops to his knees before her, begging forgiveness, certain that this is the worst wound their marriage has ever endured. His hands tremble as he clutches hers, swearing that he will make it right, that he still loves her, that he will fight to keep their family whole. And Tanya nods through her tears, pressing her lips together, giving him comfort he doesn't deserve, because she knows the real betrayal has yet to surface. He believed his confession was the end of them, but he never realized he had only scratched the surface. For if Tanya spoke the truth now, one word could tear apart everything they had built and expose a lie that had been hiding in plain sight for 12 long years. She entered the story like a shadow creeping under a locked door, quiet at first, then impossible to ignore. Her name was Monica Reed, 29 years old, a dental assistant in Oakland, a single mother raising a boy on her own. To most people, she was just another woman working to keep food on the table. But to Calvin, she was a secret, one with the power to pull his carefully built life apart. Monica's past was written in struggle. She grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment where eviction notices were more common than birthday candles. Her mother worked nights in a laundromat, her father long gone before she was old enough to remember his face. Monica learned early that survival wasn't about waiting. It was about taking. She carried that hunger into adulthood, her ambition sharp as broken glass. For Calvin, she had been an escape. She laughed easily, knew how to stroke his pride when Tanya's silence cut too deep. But what began as a distraction soon turned into something Monica believed she could control and eventually profit from. She didn't wait for Calvin to come clean. She pressed him, first with late-night texts, short, needling reminders that she wasn't going away. Then came the ultrasound photo, dropped into his inbox like a landmine. She didn't scream, she didn't beg. She laid out her demands with the calm precision of someone who had rehearsed every word. "It's yours," she wrote. "You either step up or I step in. Your wife will hear it from me." Calvin stared at the screen, the edges of his double life closing in like a noose. Monica had kept receipts, screenshots of messages, late-night calls, even pictures of them together. And now, she was threatening to walk into his workplace and expose everything. But in the Reed household, truth was slippery. Monica had a reputation for bending it when it suited her. She knew the value of doubt, how a single suggestion could undo a marriage. Was her pregnancy proof of his betrayal, or was it a weapon carefully crafted to break him down? She carried secrets like ammunition, each one polished and ready to fire. And Calvin knew, whether the child was his or not, denial alone wouldn't save him. What neither of them realized was that Tanya already knew the silence of betrayal. She already carried the burden of her own lies, heavy enough to crush her chest at night. Now, she was forced to watch as another woman held her husband's future hostage. The irony cut deep. The truth that could clear Calvin, Tanya's own devastating secret, was the one thing she could never say aloud. In a story already tangled with betrayal, Monica's arrival was gasoline on a fire. Was her child really his, or was this another layer of deception? And what happens when the one blackmailing you might be lying, but telling the truth would destroy you? Monica didn't just threaten Calvin's reputation. She threatened the very foundation Tanya had built for 12 years. And in Tanya's eyes, the truth, her truth, was far more dangerous than any lie Monica could tell. Later, Tanya heard a car engine hum outside the house. Through the curtains, she glimpsed Monica pacing in the parking lot, phone in hand, eyes fixed on the front door. She imagined Monica knocking, stepping inside, shattering the delicate illusions of her home. Her stomach twisted, heart pounding as she whispered under her breath, "Not tonight. Please, not tonight." Calvin, oblivious to Tanya's inner torment, sat in the living room scrolling through the latest text from Monica, a blurred ultrasound image, a caption threatening exposure. He stared at the screen, paralyzed. Each message felt like a countdown to disaster, but none of it compared to what Tanya carried silently, a truth that would undo everything. That night, Tanya stood outside Jamal's bedroom door. The soft rise and fall of his chest, the quiet hum of his nightlight, struck her with unbearable weight. She pressed her hand to the doorframe, trying to steady her breathing. Every lie, every hidden secret, had brought her to this room, this moment. And as she looked at her sleeping son, the thought struck her. If Calvin discovered her truth, everything, her marriage, her family, the very life they had built, would crumble in an instant. Tanya whispered, almost inaudibly, "If he finds out, everything is gone." The words hung in the air, unfinished, unbroken, carrying the tension of a family on the brink. Outside, Monica's presence lingered, a shadow of danger pressing closer, and Calvin, lost in his own guilt, remained unaware of the storm that had already begun inside his home. Deception has a weight, and some weights cannot be shared. Tanya carried hers alone. But how long could a lie survive when every corner of your life is illuminated by the truth? From the kitchen, Tanya heard the faint ping of a text notification. Monica, a sharp reminder of the external pressure mounting on their fragile marriage. Calvin didn't notice the phone vibrating in his pocket. He didn't know the shadow that had already crept into their home. Tanya rose slowly, pacing toward the hallway, every step deliberate, hands brushing against the walls as if grounding herself. The soft hum of the ceiling fan above, the creak of floorboards under her feet, the distant laughter of children in the neighborhood, each sound intensified the weight of her hidden truth. Calvin stood, following her silently. "Tanya, talk to me. Please." Her hands trembled as she gripped the edge of the counter, knuckles white. Her voice barely a whisper, she finally spoke. "Calvin, you need to know something about us." The words hung in the room, heavy with consequence. Tanya had carried the weight alone for 12 years. Each day, a careful balance of love and deception. And now, that balance was tilting, the truth threatening to spill and undo everything. Calvin froze, eyes wide, heart racing, sensing the gravity without fully understanding it. Outside, the subtle reminder of Monica's looming threat. A voicemail left minutes ago buzzed faintly in the background. The tension inside was mirrored by the danger waiting just beyond the front door. Every marriage has its trials. Some are fought openly, with words and tears. Others are silent battles, fought in shadows, with secrets that can no longer be contained. Tanya's silence had protected them for years. But for how long could a lie survive when the truth is waiting to be heard? If your partner confessed betrayal, but you held a secret even greater, would you reveal it, or let the lie protect everyone you love? How long could you endure the weight before it broke you? The house had never felt so quiet, yet the air itself seemed charged, waiting. Tanya Harris sank to the floor of her living room, knees pressed to her chest, hands trembling as she tried to hold back the storm she had carried for 12 years. For over a decade, every laugh, every bedtime story, every small moment of joy had been built on a lie. And now it was time for the truth. Calvin stood in the doorway, shoulders stiff, eyes fixed on her. The tension between them was a living thing, filling every corner of the room. "Tanya, what is it? What's going on?" he asked, voice low but urgent, unaware that what she was about to say would fracture everything they had known. She had rehearsed this moment countless times in her head. Each time, the words felt heavier, more impossible. Yet they had to be spoken. The secret she carried was no longer just hers. It was poised to destroy the life they had built together. Tanya's voice cracked, soft but resolute. "Calvin, the children, Jamal and Ayana, they are not yours." Time slowed. 12 years of shared birthdays, basketball games, Bedtime stories, family vacations, erased in a heartbeat. Calvin's body stiffened, disbelief spreading like wildfire across his features. His lips parted, but no words came. Shock rendered him motionless, his mind frantically searching for an explanation that didn't exist. Calvin's voice finally broke through, sharp and raw. "What do you mean? How could you?" Her confession transported them both to the past. The year was 2009. Tanya and Calvin had been trying for a child, filled with hope and unbroken trust. Doctors had assured them both to continue trying, to be patient, and yet fate had not aligned. Tanya, in the solitude of her fears, made a decision no one should ever have to make, a decision she believed would preserve the man she loved and the family they dreamed of. Every hug, every bedtime story, every laugh had been an act of love disguised as deception. She had become both protector and prisoner, balancing on the knife edge of morality and survival. But now, that delicate balance was gone. Back in the present, Calvin's face contorted in anger, disbelief, and humiliation. No, this isn't real. How could you live with me all these years knowing this?" His voice shook as he turned to leave, his footsteps heavy, echoing like a drumbeat through the hallway. He stormed out, leaving Tanya on the floor, sobbing into the carpet, as if the fibers themselves could absorb her guilt. In that moment, she understood that protecting someone from heartbreak had delivered devastation instead. The man she loved, the man who had never doubted his bond with these children, now felt betrayed by the very life they had built. The faint sound of Jamal turning in his sleep, the soft sigh of Ayana clutching her stuffed bear, small, innocent details underscore the magnitude of the devastation. Every sound a reminder that the life they had known, the facade of perfection, was slipping through their fingers. And then, in the wake of revelation, the consequences extended beyond the walls of their home. Calvin, consumed by betrayal and humiliation, made a decision that would ripple across their neighborhood, across Oakland itself, a choice born from raw emotion, impulsive and unrestrained. Tanya's hands trembled as she wiped her tears, realizing that the silence she had relied on for years had failed. The protective shield of her lie had shattered, and with it, the future she had tried so desperately to safeguard. For 12 years, love had been intertwined with deception, each protecting the other in its own way. But truth, once spoken, cannot be contained. Tanya's greatest fear had come to pass, and Calvin's reaction would leave the city questioning everything they thought they knew about family, loyalty, and betrayal. By mid-October 2021, the Harris household was no longer the safe harbor it once seemed. Calvin Harris, once the calm, dependable father and mentor, now moved through Oakland with a restless tension, his hands constantly trembling, his mind replaying every moment of betrayal. The revelation of Tanya's secret had shaken him to his core, but now, compounded by his own recent confession and Monica Reed's relentless pressure, a storm of fury and paranoia was building inside him. Tuesday evening, October 12, 2021, 9:45 p.m. Calvin sat in the dimly lit corner of a local bar, Marcus beside him. His normally steady voice quivered, each word heavy with confusion and rage. "I don't know what to believe anymore. I don't even know who I am in my own home," he admitted, staring into the amber swirl of whiskey. Even in confession, he spared no one but himself. The weight of betrayal, by Tanya, by Monica, by his own choices, was now a palpable force, driving him to the edge. And yet, in his mind, he clung to control, searching for a way to reclaim the life he thought he knew. From that night forward, Calvin's behavior shifted. He began following Tanya discreetly, tracking the little details she once shared freely. Her morning walks, trips to the grocery store, even the route she took to work. Each movement was analyzed, scrutinized. Every smile she offered him now carried a shadow of doubt in his mind. Meanwhile, Monica's presence loomed like a threat he could not evade. She sent texts at all hours, photos, ultrasound images, demands. Each ping of his phone sent a spike of panic through his chest, a reminder of the consequences of past decisions. Monica was unaware that Tanya's revelation had already upended everything. Her threats pressed on Calvin, but they were echoes of a deception that had already begun to collapse. Inside the house, Tanya sensed a shift. She noticed Calvin's lingering glances, the slight tension when she entered a room, the nights he spent awake in the living room, staring blankly at the muted television. Every heartbeat in her chest carried the fear that the truth, the secret she had buried for 12 years, now exposed prematurely, with catastrophic consequences for Jamal and Ayanna. Thursday evening, October 14th, 2021, in the quiet of his garage, Calvin's hands closed around the weight of a firearm. The cold metal pressed into his palm, anchoring him as he imagined confrontations with the women who had, in his mind, orchestrated his undoing. Each scenario he envisioned carried a mixture of rage and desperation, the lines between justice and revenge blurring with every passing hour. The gun was more than an instrument. It was the embodiment of control he thought he had lost. Yet, beneath the surface, it represented a moral precipice, one from which there could be no return. Calvin's anger, fear, and obsession now had a physical form, a force that could explode at any moment. Even as he moved through the streets of Oakland, late-night shadows stretching long across empty sidewalks, every sound, footsteps behind him, car doors slamming, the hum of distant traffic, was amplified in his mind. Every thought of Tanya, of Monica, of the children, coiled tighter around his chest. And yet, as dangerous as Calvin had become to the world around him, the true tension lay in the home he once cherished. Jamal, unaware, dribbled a basketball in the driveway, laughing at a joke Tanya whispered from the porch. Ayanna's soft voice called from the window, asking when dinner would be ready. The innocence of children, untouched by betrayal, created a cruel contrast to the storm raging in their father's mind. In that quiet, ordinary evening, the seeds of violence were already planted, growing with an unstoppable force. By midnight, Calvin returned to the house, the gun hidden beneath his jacket, his face a mask of calm that did little to conceal the storm within. Tanya, in her bedroom, felt a chill as his key turned in the lock. She knew, instinctively, that the danger had escalated beyond threats and arguments. Calvin Harris was no longer a man capable of reasoned thought, but a vessel of rage and fear. Betrayal, secrets, and blackmail had converged to create a lethal combination. And as he entered the home where his family slept, what would he do now? The hours to come would be a reckoning, a confrontation between hidden truths and raw emotion. And in the shadows of Oakland, the perfect illusion of the Harris family teetered on the edge of destruction. Tanya Harris, 36, had spent years carrying the heaviest secret imaginable. Her love for Calvin was unwavering, yet that same love had chained her to a truth that could destroy everything. And now, as the clock edged toward 9:42 p.m., she sensed that nothing could stop the inevitable. Tanya stood near the living room doorway, Jamal and Ayanna's laughter from upstairs a faint memory. Her palms were clammy, her breath caught in her chest. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she was frozen, a mother trapped between protecting her children and facing the storm that was Calvin. Calvin's voice, tight with anger and disbelief, sliced through the silence. Tanya, I need the truth. Now. All of it. The confrontation had been building for weeks, each threat, each secret adding layers to the tension. Tonight, words would become weapons, and secrets would demand their toll. Upstairs, Jamal stirred, sensing something wrong. Mom, he whispered, crawling out of bed. Ayanna followed, clutching her stuffed bear, eyes wide with confusion and fear. Downstairs, Calvin's eyes burned with a mixture of betrayal and desperation. Every fiber of his being wanted to lash out, to punish, to reclaim the sense of control he had lost. He raised the gun. His hands shook, not from weakness, but from the realization that nothing could reverse what he was about to do. One misstep, one word, One glance too long, and the lives of those he loved most would be forever changed. The line between anger and irreversible action blurred, and in that moment, Calvin was a man on the edge of destruction. The argument escalated rapidly. Shouts, accusations, pleas, all colliding into a crescendo of chaos. Tanya tried to reason, to appeal to the man she had loved for years. "Calvin, stop, this isn't the way," she cried, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and heartbreak. But then he fired her. The sound shattered the still night, echoing down the quiet streets. Jamal and Ayanna screamed, fear cutting through the walls like glass. Tanya collapsed, blood pooling around her, life slipping in slow, agonizing waves. Calvin stood frozen, the gun heavy in his hands, his mind reeling from the irreversible consequences of his choices. By the time neighbors dialed 911, the scene was one of horror. The Harises' home, once a sanctuary of love and laughter, had become a tableau of violence and despair. Calvin, restrained by responding officers, could only stare at the devastation he had wrought. The wail of sirens pierced the night as paramedics worked frantically to save Tanya. Neighbors whispered, stunned, piecing together fragments of what had occurred. "Did you hear that? Shots, she's been shot. Oh my God, the children." The night of October 18th would be remembered not for birthdays, anniversaries, or ordinary moments, but for the sudden eruption of long-hidden truths. 12 years of secrets, lies, and desperate protection had exploded into violence. Jamal and Ayanna, innocent witnesses to horror, were forever changed. And Tanya, the keeper of the deepest secret, now lay at the center of a nightmare she could no longer control. Neighbors stepped onto porches, their faces pale, as the flashing red and blue lights approached the Harris home. Inside, chaos had already consumed the family. Calvin Harris sat on the front porch, hands trembling and streaked with blood. His gaze was distant, fixated on nothing and everything at once. Every heartbeat seemed to hammer against his chest as the magnitude of what he had done began to sink in. His mind raced through years of love, betrayal, and secrets. He whispered fragments of a broken confession. "She lied to me. All these years, everything." Tanya Harris was rushed to Highland Hospital, her body critically injured. Her breaths came in shallow gasps as nurses fought to stabilize her. The weight of years of hidden truth now laid bare on her fragile frame. The woman who had carried a secret for 12 years, who had shielded her husband from a reality that could have destroyed him, now clung to life in ways that words could not describe. Upstairs, Jamal and Ayanna woke screaming. Jamal's small body trembled as he clutched his sister, while Ayanna's eyes reflected shock and confusion. Their world had shifted in an instant. Relatives, summoned in urgency, scooped the children into safe arms, their innocence fractured but their bodies unharmed. The trauma was visible in every shiver, every tear, and every whispered question. "Why, Mama? Why?" While the Harris children were being comforted, officers secured the scene. Evidence was carefully cataloged. Fingerprints, shell casings, and the chaotic remnants of a family torn apart. Neighbors' statements painted the night in stark detail. Shouting, glass breaking, the terrifying echo of a gunshot. Surveillance footage captured the arrival of first responders, racing to a home that had been a symbol of stability, now stained by violence. Monica Reed, the woman who had threatened Calvin for weeks, had vanished. No trace remained of her presence. Her absence added another layer of mystery. Was she hiding, calculating her next move, or fleeing fear? The unanswered question lingered like a shadow over the family's shattered lives. Detectives began piecing together timelines, combing through phone records, texts, and surveillance footage. Calvin was questioned while seated on a metal bench in the driveway, his gaze hollow, his words fragments of disbelief and anguish. "She lied to me. I don't know what's real anymore." Tanya, finally conscious in the hospital, thought first of her children. Their frightened eyes, their small voices, haunted her even from her hospital bed. She realized that surviving was not enough. The delicate web of lies and truths still clung around her, threatening to unravel everything she had tried to protect. And yet, even as the immediate chaos settled, the story was far from over. Hidden motives, lingering secrets, and moral dilemmas remained. Tanya's secret, Calvin's violence, Monica's disappearance. Each thread of deception was about to collide in ways that would shock Oakland and everyone who had ever admired the Harris family. Because in the weeks to come, investigators would uncover more than just the events of a single night. They would reveal hidden truths about Monica, Calvin, and even Tanya herself. Truths that no one was prepared for, and which would leave a city questioning what love, loyalty, and justice really meant. Investigators started with the obvious, the scene itself. Bullet casings glinted in the weak light, a coffee mug lay shattered, and the faint scent of gunpowder lingered in the air. Every object, every mark, every echo of movement was meticulously documented. But the house told only part of the story. The deeper secrets lay in the devices Calvin and Tanya had carried into their private lives: smartphones, laptops, and hidden documents. Text messages between Calvin and Monica revealed weeks of secret meetings, desperate pleas, and thinly veiled threats. Financial transfers traced payments meant to silence her, creating a paper trail that only deepened the tangled web of betrayal. Detectives moved to Tanya's side of the story. Medical records confirmed years of unspoken anguish, infertility, diagnoses, and attempts to reconcile hope with reality. DNA tests would soon reveal what Calvin could not yet imagine. Children he had loved for over a decade were not biologically his. Each revelation felt like a punch to the gut, layering shock upon shock. As investigators pieced together each element, the blackmail, the betrayal, the hidden truths, it became clear that this was no simple case of anger or revenge. It was a collision of secrecy, loyalty, and human desperation. And in the middle of it all, two children slept unaware, their innocence fragile and fleeting. Neighbors and co-workers were interviewed, their recollections painting a picture of a man unraveling. Calvin's once respected demeanor now seemed fractured. The man who laughed with neighbors at barbecues now haunted by paranoia, his eyes darting, hands trembling. Surveillance footage confirmed the late-night meetings with Monica, his movements leading up to that fatal evening now under a microscope. The investigation also uncovered small but telling details: the timing of Calvin's gun purchase, the whispered conversations with colleagues, Monica's sudden disappearance from public view. Each piece of evidence added tension. Each question asked led to another, until the story seemed to twist upon itself, offering no easy answers. Prosecutors began the painstaking process of constructing a case for attempted murder. Every text, every financial transfer, and every document became evidence. Defense attorneys prepared their arguments, framing Calvin as a man provoked, a man pushed to the edge by layers of deception. Meanwhile, Tanya's hidden truth hovered over every discussion, an invisible weight no one fully understood. In a case fueled by lies, the jury's decision was not obvious. Betrayal had worn many faces: the husband who strayed, the wife who kept a secret for 12 years, the mistress who demanded attention and money. And the question remained: who, if anyone, deserved justice? If someone you loved kept a secret for years, protecting you from pain, yet creating devastation in silence, would you forgive? Or would your rage eclipse your reason? The courtroom doors opened, and as the first witnesses took their seats, every secret, every betrayal, and every hidden truth prepared to collide under the unforgiving eyes of law. What would be revealed next would shock the city and leave everyone questioning the very nature of trust. The prosecution called Tanya to the stand. She hesitated at first, eyes darting toward Calvin, but the bailiff's nod reminded her there was no turning back. As she raised her right hand to take the oath, her fingers shook. The first words barely left her lips. "I lied for years." Her voice cracked, and a murmur rippled through the courtroom. For the first time, Tanya was forced to place her secrets into the open air of the courtroom, a space where half-truths and hidden lies collapse under the oath of honesty. She recounted everything: the hidden affair, the constant fear, the guilt that shadowed her every morning. At times she spoke through tears. At other moments, she sat in silence, so long the court reporter lifted her eyes, waiting to see if the woman had lost her voice entirely. Each pause was louder than any word she managed to speak. Across the room, Calvin never looked away. His stare was a mixture of rage and disbelief, as though each confession twisted the knife of betrayal deeper. His lawyer scribbled furiously, but no defense strategy could erase the years of deception now echoing through the courtroom. The prosecutor emphasized intent. Calvin had not snapped in a moment of rage. He had planned, calculated, and acted. The attempt on Tanya's life was painted not as an accident of passion, but as a deliberate execution that failed only by chance. The defense countered, portraying him as a broken man, humiliated, provoked beyond human endurance. They begged the jury to see him as someone consumed by betrayal rather than as a cold-blooded killer. But Tanya's trembling words lingered in the jury's mind. "I thought keeping it secret was protecting my family. But secrets rot in silence, and when they finally rise, they take everything with them." When a verdict came, the courtroom held still. Guilty of attempted murder. Calvin lowered his head, shoulders finally collapsing, as if the words had drained whatever pride remained. The judge's sentence followed with brutal finality: 25 years in state prison. Tanya's hands covered her mouth, not in triumph, but in grief. For all her survival, she knew she had lost something irretrievable. Justice had been served in the eyes of the law, but in the hearts of those who once shared a home, there was no victory, only absence. The children were not in the courtroom. They had been shielded, spared the sight of their father in shackles, and their mother unraveling on the witness stand. Yet whispers lingered about their future. Would they carry their father's anger? Would they resent their mother for her silence? Or would they grow into adults who feared truth itself? As the gavel struck one final time, Calvin was led away. He turned once, eyes searching the room, but Tanya could not look at him. For the first time in decades, there was nothing left between them. No secrets, no lies, only distance. This story is not about guilt alone. It is about what we choose to bury. Secrets, pride, betrayal. These are the foundations that cracked beneath Calvin and Tanya's marriage. And in the rubble lay children scarred, a community divided, and 2 lives destroyed by silence. If you were Tanya, would you have told him the truth from the start? Or, like her, would you have carried the secret, no matter the cost?